Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Protests against a new law described as anti-gay have seen rock concerts cancelled and business scale-back expansion plans in the American state of North Carolina. Amongst other measures, the law requires transgender people to use the toilet that corresponds with the sex of their birth certificate. Bruce Springsteen has led criticism of the bill by cancelling a local concert, saying he was doing so to fight against prejudice and bigotry. In a moment, we'll be speaking to transgender model Laith Ashley. But first, our Washington correspondent Kylie Morris has this report.
Anyone who thought last year's legalisation of same-sex marriage meant the tide had turned for LGBTQ rights in America, well, it depends on where you live. Even as couples celebrated on the steps of the court in Washington, D.C., conservative activists at a state level had begun a fight back in defence, they say, of religious freedom. While the Supreme Court made same-sex marriage legal all across the US, many states continue to offer no protection to citizens discriminated against because of their sexuality or gender identity. But the southern states of Tennessee, North Carolina and Mississippi are among those who've gone further. North Carolina is this month's front line. Its State House passed a new bill that says you have to use the bathroom or locker room of the gender that you were born into, not the one you're living as. So if you need to use the bathroom and you're trans, you'll have to shape-shift into the gender you were at birth. During the debate, trans people spoke about why the issue matters to them.
I have a right to be safe too. I have a right to be safe too. I was bullied and tortured mercilessly there. And where did it happen? It happened in the men's room.
So you won't see signs like this in North Carolina, and nor will any town or city be able to come up with their own laws to stop discrimination in the state. Then this happened. Two major businesses, Deutsche Bank and PayPal, dropped plans for new investments in North Carolina that would have brought more than 600 jobs. And Bruce Springsteen cancelled a concert, issuing a statement that reads in part, "Some things are more important than a rock show." But hardline conservatives are applauding North Carolina for pushing back on an issue they regard as a threat to religious liberty. How does allowing a transgender person to use a toilet of their choosing affect anyone's religious freedom?
People have always been able to rely upon the presumption that when they go into a men's room or a woman's room, that they will be protected, that both their privacy and their safety will be protected from the presence of people of the opposite biological sex.
How do they pose a risk?
Well, even if there is no violence or assault that takes place or harassment that takes place, there is still an invasion of privacy.
I am taking action to affirm the state's commitment to privacy and equality.
Last night, North Carolina's governor issued his own executive order, giving some ground on the bill, but doubling down on the bathrooms issue.
Kylie Morris reporting there. Well, the campaign to tackle discrimination against transgender people has been gathering pace. And one man spearheading it is the new star of the New York catwalk, model Laith Ashley. Now, Laith was born female. He's now 26 and started transitioning 2 years ago. He joins us live now from New York. Laith, thanks very much for joining us. I just wanted, if we could start first.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. Just wanted to start first with whether you yourself, in those 2 years that you've been transitioning, have faced discrimination.
I personally have not. I know that I've read countless comments from people that follow me on social media and friends of mine as well that are active in seeking, or helping with transgender rights and are activists in the community. And they've told me that, in a sense, I do have some sort of privilege. One, I've gained some male privilege, and although I am a person of color, I am fair-skinned, and I adhere to society's standard of aesthetic beauty, in a sense. And for that reason, I have not necessarily faced much discrimination, at least not living as a man. Most of the time, the difficulties that I faced were actually when I was living as a woman, because I would be perceived as a young boy. So listening in on all the bathroom issues, for example, when I was perceived as a boy and I would walk into the women's bathroom prior to my transition, I would just be, going to the stall, minding my own business, and groups of women would like gather in front of the stall and ask me what I was doing in there. And I totally understand the need for that space for many women, and the need to feel that protection, so that it makes sense to me. However, not allowing someone or respecting someone's gender identity and using all sorts of, like a lot of these people that are passing this legislation, they probably have never ever encountered or had a conversation with a transgender person. And the people that are really facing most difficulties are transgender women. It's more so the women, not the men. Well, and that reason being is because, yeah.
Well, I was just thinking, it's interesting that you say that people have not met a transgender person, and that's why it's difficult for them to understand. I mean, how long do you think it's going to take for you to get acceptance?
I don't know if universal acceptance will ever happen, because the fact is no two people they're never going to agree on everything, but it's about respect. And, if people just loved each other and there was some sort of mutual respect for people and their identities and their beliefs, I think the world would be a much better place, and there wouldn't be this, this tension, this back and forth that exists now. It is great that there's visibility on the topic and more people are starting to discuss that, and they're becoming more aware of what trans is, because, up until maybe a couple years ago, I'm sure even now, a majority of people probably never heard of trans or didn't know what it was, and in their minds, someone transgender was simply more so a man wearing a dress, and that idea, I think, is what scares people when it comes to the bathroom, because especially in the women's bathroom, people are assuming that a man dressed as a woman is going to walk in and expose themselves or attack and rape, and the fact is, there are no, at least not to my knowledge, no reported incidences of any trans person ever attacking or raping or exposing themselves to someone in a bathroom. It's always the other way around. Transgender people are the ones that are experiencing attacks, and we're the ones that need that protection.
Laith, Ashley, thank you so much for talking about all of that so eloquently. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah. Oh, thank you again for having me here.
Amazing, absolutely amazing, really fascinating and intriguing.
I've been getting away with it all.